Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. Paul Palmer is joining me. Paul, do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I do. Good to be here.
Welcome. This is the Johnny Be Good, Better or Best 45 Song Blog, the 2025 Guest Blogger Award Show. And thank you for joining us. We are seeking to honor all the wonderful people that spent some time blogging. And I want to make clear at the beginning that this is an Urgent Inc. production. I was going to say of Pearson and Son with my son Jason, but it's important to point out that Jason had no part in the amateurish production of this Zoom call. But those are my sideburns from the 70s, and I thought that would be appropriate here.
But so you do have some orange in the slide, though, so we know it's Jason.
There you go. My special guest is Paul Palmer. And Paul, I'm going to get to the awards that you won, but thank you for blogging on this. And you just kept me going. And one of your blogs especially was just incredible. So Paul has a little musical background that he'll tell us about, but we want to get to the awards, and these are the best of awards for all the guest bloggers that blogged a chapter, a song from the book Anatomy of a Song by Marc Myers, the oral history of 45 iconic hits that changed rock, R&B, and pop. And I need to give credit to my wife, Joanne, because it was her idea that we do this. And of course, the decision of the judges are final. So you can read my original review of Anatomy of a Song in the link below, or you can just Google it and find it online. And we have a website just devoted to the 45 song blogs. But let's get in, because Paul, you remember Walk This Way by Aerosmith. And I thought that, just like all the award shows, you want to start out with Best Picture. And Melinda Schmidt was the blogger, and she picked Walk This Way. And it was so much fun, Paul, like you, to hear why a certain person picked a certain song. And so she talks about that in her blog, song number 34. But the reason I picked this for Best Picture is what you have there is Melinda in her early days. Her own car had the license plate Grateful, and she was working in a recording studio in the Chicago area. And in walks a guy that everybody was making a big deal over. And she says to somebody, "Who's that?" And they said, "That's Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead." Has nothing to do with Walk This Way. But she, of course, had to take him out to the parking lot and get a picture with her car and the Grateful license plate. So, Melinda, congratulations. You won the award of Best Picture. So, Paul, have you ever been to Scotland?
Yes.
Well, then you would understand why I picked John Ashman for best blogging location. He and his wife, Judy, headed off for a sabbatical, interesting sabbatical, after he had retired from his position with Citygate Network. And he spent a couple of months in Scotland, and the local pub band asked him to join their band, if you can imagine. But his favorite song in the whole book was My Girl. So not a bad location to write.
Looks like there's a lot of Scotch whiskeys in the background there.
Yeah, well, we're not going to comment on that.
We won't comment on that. No.
Anyway, John Ashman, thank you for blogging and congratulations. Now, who doesn't like a great Elvis song like Suspicious Minds, song number 23? And of course, Bill Butterworth, who knows his way around the speaking circuit, gets the award for almost best story. You've got to read his blog because Bill wrote songs in his early days, and he was a member of ASCAP. Paul, you can tell me what ASCAP stands for.
American Society of Composers, Artists, and Producers, I think.
I knew you would know that.
Thank
you. Thank you for being my color commentary here. So the guy from ASCAP called on Bill when he was down in Florida and was asking, what other songs he's written. And Bill showed him a song and he said, wow, I think Elvis Presley would like that song. And of course, Bill could hardly believe it. And yet the reason it's almost best story is because before the guy from ASCAP could get the song to Elvis, Elvis died. So you have to read the whole story, but Bill waxes eloquently on Suspicious Minds. Thanks, Bill, for doing the blog. Now, everybody had to send me their picture, and I think the best on-site location was Dave Barton, because when he picked the song Groovin' by the Young Rascals, do you know a line or two of that?
On a song? Sunday afternoon. We're grooving on a Sunday afternoon.
There you go. I mean, we all know it, right?
Yep.
So I thought Dave's photo of him sitting at home by the pool with his dog and an umbrella hat, I mean, clearly the best location for that matched the song Groovin'.
The only better one would be if someone was sitting on the dock of the bay when they did their review.
Okay. Well, we may get to that. We may not. Now, Dave's wife, Patsy, if you can believe it, was clever enough to pick Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man, which, of course, is Dave Barton's favorite song because she will always be standing by your man. So, but Patsy wrote a fabulous review of that chapter and that song. And obviously, since today is Super Bowl Sunday, and there's a potential, if you're not an Eagles fan, if you're an Eagles fan, you will not want me mentioning this, but Kansas City is hoping to do a three-peat, 3 Super Bowl wins in a row. And so I had to give Dave and Patsy a three-peat honorable mention for their family doing 3 songs together. So
and I am a Kansas City fan, so I am definitely rooting for the Chiefs.
Okay, well, there you go. Nick of Time by Bonnie Raitt. Now, my friend Dick Nelson, Richard Ned Nelson from up in Seattle, in my mind, has the best memory. And now I'm not saying he's the oldest blogger, because maybe another guy comes close, but he could reach way back to the Four Tops, Reach Out, I'll Be There. And that's a nice, beautiful picture of Dick and his wife, Mary, from a year or two back. So Dick, great job on the blog. Thanks for doing that. Do you, Paul, do you remember the Four Tops?
Barely. Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I love that music back then.
Motown is good. Motown is good.
Yeah. Okay. Then Susie West, one of my neighbors down here in San Clemente, California, talks about being a 12-year-old DJ, as I would call it, when her older brother, who had a turntable, would go out of the house for whatever. Susie would sneak into his room and start playing all of his records without permission, of course. And so she would just be spinning and having a good old time. And one of the songs that she loved perhaps the most is Light My Fire. And she talks about in her blog, when that song comes on the radio, even today, she wonders if it's going to be the short version or the long version. And she talks about, I think, the organ solo. So Light My Fire. Do you remember that one, Paul?
Oh, my freshman year roommate at Oral Roberts, he loved the Doors, and I remember playing that in 1968. So that's was definitely up there. And you should watch the Val Kilmer movie where he plays Jim Morrison. It's really a great movie and a great performance by Val Kilmer.
Okay, all right. I didn't know that. Susie's husband, Jim, I love the fact I got several couples to each blog, but Jim is hilarious. His review of Maggie May by Rod Stewart is fabulous, but I've dubbed him the best non-musician who loved this song because he says he's not a singer. He says that even in church, sometimes he'll be singing away and somebody will lean over and say, "Hey, Jim, you're supposed to make a joyful noise to the Lord, not one that sounds like you sing or whatever." But you'll have to read his blog too. So Jim and Susie, thanks for your blogging. And I thought this was unusual. John Walling, good friend who was the CEO and president of the Christian Community Credit Union. He picked a blog that has the best banking metaphor in it from the Righteous Brothers. You've lost that loving feeling. And if you'll read that blog, you'll see why it's the banking metaphor. The producer told one of the Righteous Brothers not to sing on the verse. And he was a little bent out of shape for that. And he says, "So, what am I going to do?" And he says, "Well, you can just take it to the bank," meaning this song is going to make a lot of money. And the fact that you're not singing every part, don't worry about it. I thought, Paul, in reading all those stories, that I had no clue how often producers and arrangers kind of get into it and make these little and sometimes large decisions that totally affect the outcome of the song and really make it big. And that's one of the things. Paul, you were a music major, right?
Yes, I was.
And so that drill, but I think most people who just enjoy listening to music have no clue of the nuances behind all these songs.
Well, if I could tell a story about a song that wasn't in the book, I don't think, but it was Aquarius Let the Sunshine In by the Fifth Dimension. The Fifth Dimension could not read music. None of the people could. They were opening in Vegas, and they would work until midnight, and then they'd record that song and work on it from like midnight to 5 a.m. And they were taught that song word by word, basically, measure by measure. And in reading about the history of it, how the producer, Bones Howe, he only had 8 tracks on the recording, whereas now they have like 64 tracks and things like that. They had 8 tracks, and they drew a picture of where each microphone was. Wow. And they had 1 mic left, and that's when he gave to Billy Davis, saying, "We're going to let you do the wailing in the Let the Sunshine In part." But it's just one little idea that changes the whole, tenor of the song and how the song became so famous and number 1 in 1969.
No kidding.
Doing that, having that 1 mic available.
Wow. Well, that's what I loved about the book. All those little stories that, like, you had no idea. A friend from way back, Larry Beatty, was a Christian camp director in Pennsylvania. And I noticed on Facebook, I hadn't connected with him in years, but I noticed on Facebook, he kept posting about the band he was in. And so he wins the award for best blog from a real rock band drummer. And he picked Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf. You got to read his blog because it's so interesting. And he talks about being in a band in his high school years, and they named a band after somebody's memorial sidewalk. And he says, "Hey, we were in high school. We thought it was a cool name." But what surprised me, he turned me down originally, and I said, "Larry, certainly the drummer has got a lot to say about magic carpet ride. And so he finally relented. And I thought he did a fabulous job. And I was just so blessed that so many musicians said yes to blogging, like yourself, Paul. Now, best blog from a real songwriter slash runner. Gary Ray is the worship pastor at my favorite church in San Clemente, Paradigm Community. And the reason he picked Rambling Man by the Allman Brothers was because it had the perfect timing when he started running, just to get more exercise in. And even that was kind of over my head in terms of the how the timing affected his running. But I always loved the song. And Gary's from South Africa, and so he learned a few new words from us Yanks over here. But Gary, thanks for doing this. I joked with him that the only reason I'm a member of Paradigm Community was that I could recruit people from the church to write some of the blogs. So, great blog. Also from the church, Scott Anderson, who's one of the elders there. When he was in high school, he was a jazz drummer. And so when I gave him the opportunity, and this is an AI photo of a guy washing dishes, Scott, in addition to being a jazz drummer, worked for, Paul, maybe you would remember, in Irvine, Wild Animal Park or something, way back.
Way back.
Yeah. He washed dishes there. And this song kept playing, Rock the Boat. And he hated it, maybe because he heard it so many times. But I said, that would make a great blog. And so he got the book and read the chapter and decided, like, okay, now that I understand the song, I appreciate the song much more, understand what went into it. And I think many people found that true of even some of the favorite songs. They got more background from Marc Meyer's book on that.
Well, if you ever listen to 70s on 7 on Sirius every Saturday morning, they have the Casey Kasem American Top 40 for the week that you're in, and they choose a year. And they were doing a top 100 something at the end of the year, and the Hughes, Rock the Boat, the Hughes Corporation, was the very first #1 disco song. It hit #1.
That's right. That's right.
So
yes.
That's a little bit of trivia. It didn't come in #1 but it came in like I forget, it was in the mid-20s in the top 100 of the 70s. So
yeah.
That's
yeah. Well, that's the thing about these songs. I mean, just get two people, you and me, sitting together talking about them, and we can just go down all kinds of interesting little paths. Now, Sky Matlock, I know her grandfather and met Sky at her grandfather's 80th birthday party, and realized she's a musician in New York City. And I told her about the blog, of course, because I was still recruiting at the time. And she said, oh, Deacon Blues, Steely Dan. And her blog, you got to read it, everybody. Chapter 36. Her insight on the New Testament story of the prodigal son and tied to Deacon Blues is just stunning. I mean, so Sky, thank you for doing this, and I hope you'll look up Sky Matlock's music. It was just a very, very special thing for me. Here, this was Joanne's idea that I do this blog on this book. She said I reviewed too many management and leadership books. Why don't you do a fun book sometime? And so I thought her idea was good, but I had no idea that such a wide diversity of people that would come along, and I'd tell them about the project, and they said, oh, I'd love to do it. So Sky, thank you for doing that. Another one, Callista Dawson, is the daughter of a good friend, Ed Barrett. And Callista picked Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. And so I call her the best. The award is the best singer songwriter embracing quirkiness. Now, I'm not saying that Callista is quirky, although read her blog, and she probably uh, resonates with Cyndi Lauper. I've never really followed anything about Cyndi Lauper, but because it was one of 45 songs in this book, I read it and I thought, well, boy, that's interesting. So Callista, nice job. And Callista also has recorded music, and you can read in her blog and click on and order some of her music. Just beautifully done, beautiful music. I should say more, but I don't want to spoil it for you. Now, Callista's dad, Ed Barrett, the only father-daughter combination of blockers. Ed is a lyricist. He's written 1,000 plus poems and song lyrics, etc. And he still owns vinyl. So the award is the best lyricist who still owns vinyl. And he did the great song Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. Still has that album. Paul, do you still have any vinyl?
Yes, I have 4 boxes, the vinyl tubs out in the garage of all my vinyl, which I've not opened in several years. But
yeah,
mine run more eclectic to classical and Ralph Carmichael and gospel. But I do have the Beatles, a couple of Beatles albums. That's my and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Fifth Dimension. That's where my interest ran back in the day.
Okay. Well, Ed's wife, Kathy, was on the board of Christian Community Credit Union, and we miss Kathy. And so she would rope Ed into writing poems for special occasions for the credit union board. And so I still have some of the poems that Ed wrote for me. And his blog is classic, Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Callista. Now, my son Jason, I guess he volunteered. I mean, because I kept saying, now you don't have to do this just because your dad's doing this crazy blog, because it was your mom's idea, hint, hint. But while Jason and his family live out here or most of the family still live out here in San Clemente, California, from art school in Kansas City, Jason went to New York City and worked for record albums. And then the award I want to give to you, Jason, is Best New York City-based Music Magazine Co-Founder. Jason was the co-founder of Blender Magazine, the first magazine to be issued in CD-ROM. It's in the Smithsonian. And Jason did 3 reviews: Casey Loving, because he lived in Kansas City, London Calling with The Clash, and then Losing My Religion by REM. And you can read his reviews in the blog number 2, number 40, and number 45. And Jason helped me with some AI photos along the way in a variety of ways. He did the Bill Butterworth, Elvis Presley fabulous photo for that blog. Thank you, Jason.
He wasn't Losing My Religion. He's not a Calvinist, is he?
That's right. and by the way, in that blog, I do put in a little clip of a book called Losing My Religion by the now editor of Christianity Today, and David Schmidt and I think Jason did a review of that book, but unrelated to the blog. So now, special mention, one colleague who continues to remain nameless is production guy. He worked on the production team part-time at a mega church, and he had quite a lot of interesting little side comments, but did not want to have his name or photo go public. So you'll see 3, 4, maybe 5 blogs by production guy, and look in the blog and you'll see which ones he did. Some great ones with some really interesting insights on
Very much so.
like the first reverb machine that was used in producing a record. And then I have a friend here in San Clemente, David Kay, and trust me, I bought him a lot of lunches because he was a rocker from the 60s and 70s in Chicago. I mean, he's been to more live concerts and has played in more venues. He's not playing now, but he kind of he wants to be anonymous, but David K is fine. He calls me Johnny P. And we did some fun stuff in looking through some of these chapters. And when I didn't have a guest blogger, I would say, okay, David, I want to buy you lunch. Tell me everything you know about this singer. Well, he's like an encyclopedia. So I wish I could put his picture up. I think I put a picture of one of his 2 guitars that he still has on one of the blogs, but you'll enjoy his thoughts as well. Now, I've saved the best for last, Paul. This is a classic photo of you. Give me a little more background. When was this?
This was the fall of 1968 at Oral Roberts University. I was a tuba major. That picture was taken in what was called Timko Barton Lobby, which was the first building on campus. And that's where all the concerts were held and for the first 3 years. At one end of the building was the auditorium where chapel was. And on the other end of the building was cafeteria. And just within the last month, that building was taken down to be replaced by a new residence hall, 2 new residence halls and a new dining commons. So the original building at ORU is no longer, but this was my freshman year playing tuba in a band concert.
Wow. 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 And you said you were a tuba major.
I majored in tuba. I was going to be a high school band director. That was my goal in life.
Okay.
So tuba took me to ORU because I got a scholarship
on
tuba.
Wow. And you didn't ever think about like a flute that would be easier to carry?
No, that was never. My sister played flute, but not me. So it's
okay. Well, I played trumpet in grade school, and then in church, I was in a trumpet trio in high school, that we played at church. But and then I played in the marching bands that we would always organize at the 2 Christian camps that I led. And one year we actually found some band uniforms at Goodwill. And so everybody in the band had a full high school marching band uniform. And we would come unannounced, come marching into the dining hall at lunchtime or dinner time. And I could still play. The only song we played was When the Saints Go Marching In. And then we would ask for favorites. And of course, some wisecracker would say, When the Saints Go Marching In. And our band leader would say, oh, we know that one so well, we can play it backwards. And of course, we would turn around and play it again. Yeah. So, okay. So, Paul, clearly you get the award for the best research song times 100. I mean, I don't know how many emails and phone calls we had, and I loved every one of them. And your blog doesn't do justice to all the work you did, but talk to us about Oh Happy Day by the Edwin Hawkins Singers, and tell us who those beautiful people are next to you.
Well, in the picture is myself and my wife Cheryl on the left, and in the middle is Lily Knowles. If you've ever watched any of the Bill Gaither homecoming shows, you would see her because she's always wearing a hat. That's her trademark. This was at a concert of the Hoppers out at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Highland I guess it was 5 years ago now. She sang at my dad's church in Santa Maria numerous times. My cousins and her are best friends, so she's got a real connection to the family, but she was in the original Edwin Hawkins Singers. Wow. And I went to her apartment when I was working on the blog, and she showed me the scrapbook of all the stuff about Oh Happy Day from the very beginning all the way to the end of when Edwin Hawkins died. It's an amazing story. I love finding interesting facts, and I did some research on how many times "Oh Happy Day" has been covered by other groups, and it's the third most covered song in history. 200, I think 230 some times it's been recorded. And that probably doesn't include all of them, but that's the one that the website Second Sound has chronicled.
Wow.
And it's an amazing story how, and this sort of ties into a Ralph Carmichael story. They were doing this there. She was from the AME, I forget the name. It's an AME church up in Oakland where Edwin Hawkins started. And they were doing this choir, and the pastor, I'm sorry, not AME, it's Church of God in Christ
Okay.
church in
Yeah.
Oakland. The pastor did not like the fact that they were sort of moving with the music. And so we don't want you to have the name, whatever the Church of God in Christ singers were, choir. So he just named it the Edwin Hawkins Singers.
Huh.
And it reminds me of a story about Ralph Carmichaal when he was a student at Southern California College, which is now Vanguard. And
Yeah.
he had his first jazz band. And the president of the university, they were going to be on Channel 5 on their Sunday morning program here in LA, KTLA. And he, the president of the university said, okay, you can do it, but just don't have Southern California Bible College anywhere. We don't want you to know that we're on TV. And then the show won an Emmy Award, their local Emmy Award. And the president of the university asked Ralph, well, can you put Southern California Bible College on the music stand?
Right.
But the funny story about that was that he would not allow the baritone sax to be stored on campus. Ralph had to carry the baritone sax in the trunk of his car because it was not Christian. But a tenor sax was, and an alto sax was, but a baritone sax was just beyond the pale, basically.
Oh dear.
But "Oh Happy Day," it's amazing if you go on YouTube and look at all the different groups of recorded it. And the most exciting to me was with 100 Voices of 100 Voices of Joy, I think it was on Britain's Got Talent.
Yes.
Did it.
Yes.
And what's interesting was their first song they sang was "This Old Light of Mine." And then what happened was if you watch America's Got Talent or BGT, they always play some song when the judges are making their comments.
Yeah.
And the song they played as an under theme was "Oh Happy Day."
Wow.
And that's what then they sang "Oh Happy Day" as their final selection in the finals. So it was, "Oh Happy Day" has gone a long ways from January of '69 at a church, and it sold 7 million albums, 7 million songs in the first 7 months that it was out. And if you do research, you ask, what's the most number one seller of all time in Christian music? And Google says that it's "I Can Only Imagine" by Mercy Me.
Yeah.
But it only sold 2.3 million songs. This sold 7 million songs.
Wow. Wow. Well, Paul, I don't know if your research will ever be replicated by anyone else, but that I just enjoyed it. And I need to give you a second award, Best Help Out a Friend Award, because as you remember, I called you early on saying, hey, the person who was doing Please Mr. Postman by the Marvelettes said no. So would you help me on that? And then of course, Gladys Knight and the Pips' Midnight Train to Georgia. And you'll remember that the original title of that song was Midnight Plane to Houston.
Yep.
I mean, but both of those were just absolutely fascinating. But Paul, you have been such a great friend, and I owe you a very nice lunch.
Thank you, John. Not necessary, but it was
maybe,
fun.
And maybe more. So I do want to thank everybody that participated in this and people who read the columns and responded. And also my wife, Joanne, whose idea it was. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now coming in 2025, and let me just be crystal clear here. I'm not saying that I'm doing a blog with 55 more songs. Actually, the paperback book of Anatomy of 55 More Songs actually has 58 songs. But I have the book. I've read and taken notes for 7 of those songs, and I'm going to write just my normal review of your week I do an e-newsletter called Your Weekly Staff Meeting, mostly leadership and management books, but occasionally a few fun books. And so I'm going to be reviewing that early in 2025. Somebody's going to have to really convince me to recruit more bloggers, but who knows? You never say no.
Well,
So
58 weeks, John. A church at the Oberlin Friends Church. The pastor took 58 weeks to go through Matthew. So I mean, it's
okay. Okay. Well, I mean, here are the 7 songs I picked. Just the first seven chapters I read. Walk on by, ain't no mountain high enough. Killing me softly with this song. Gordon Lightfoot, Sundown. Nobody does it better. Carly Simon, Kenny Rogers, the Gambler. The Devil Went Down to Georgia. Charlie Daniels Band. There's some great stories in there, and I'm gonna read the whole book, but I don't know. I'm gonna promise a blog. We'll see. But anyway, thank you, everybody. And Paul, thank you very much for joining me and doing color commentary on the 2025 Guest Blogger Award Show for the Johnny Be Good blog. You just go to urgentinc.typepad.com/Johnny Johnny _B_good, and you'll get it. But if you probably found this on that blog anyway. So we're gonna sign off now. Any parting words?
It was just a fun. I still haven't forgiven you for all the sleepless nights I had with "Oh Happy Day" going through my mind. That was the downside, and then "Midnight Train" also. That was the that my wife. I had to go sleep in the other room almost because I was tossing and turning, and you couldn't get the song out of my head. So it's so that was the only downside of "Oh Happy Day."
Yeah, well, you and me too. So I'm gonna try to stop recording here. There may be a little bit of a pause before I figure out how to do this, but Paul, this was fantastic. I can't. I'm surprised how much fun I had with it.
It was, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable, unbelievable. So thanks for being part of this. Your check is in the mail.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I hope I have the correct address. So let me stop the recording here.